Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and today I've got another one of those two-part videos that aren't actually very popular on my channel, but I'm doing them anyway. This time I'll be building and modifying this Rubicon Kettenkrad with Goliath tracked mine. And if you come back next week, I'll even paint up the set as well. As per my style, I'll show off the instructions for you to pause on in case you lose yours or get this model secondhand without them. The set does come with some transfers that I may or may not use next week. Most of them seem to be different license plate numbers, which is a little uninteresting. The set comes on 3 sprues. This main sprue contains most of the set, the Kettenkrad and the trailers and the mine. One of the smaller ones has the passengers and the other small one has the driver. Well, let's get stuck in and clip some parts off of the sprue. And all of the parts of this sprue are nicely moulded, as I have come to expect from Rubicon. There is good detail on the outside, and the plastic is sturdy enough to survive a little bit of moving around on the tabletop as a gaming piece. There are mould lines, of course, but very shallow and easy to clean. The first part to attach is the front fork on the front wheel. There's a little bar on the fork, so it can only be installed one way with the bar at the back. Next is the top of the steering column, which is an odd one to line up. There is a circle feature for the headlight, pointing forwards, and the blocky teeth are to attach to the body, and so they go at the back, pointing down. The top arms of the fork then go into these features that almost act like slots to do so. And I let all of that sit for a little bit so that I didn't kind of push the pieces out of place. And once that was set, I stuck the headlight with the blackout slit onto the front and the handlebars on top. And those two parts are pretty well keyed and so do line up quite easily. Moving on to the main body of the Kettenkrad, you can see the inside has plenty of these tabs to act as keying for the various parts of the body. Rubicon does seem to like this style and it makes the build much easier and provides a lot of surface for poly cement to stick. The two sides go onto the base, glued by those keying tabs, and it forms a pretty solid box. Then there is a rounded front panel that also fits securely into place. That front piece has a hole for the steering assembly to fit in, and you should fit that before you put the top piece on. When I put the top piece on, I put cement all around the lower piece on the front, as well as in peg holes, but I put cement on the top panel at the very back, and this is to make sure that all of the contact has cement all the way around, but ensures that I don't have big lines of squeeze out when I inevitably put it in the wrong place. The front left corner didn't go quite down all the way, and I've seen other people with this kit have the same issue. I dabbed a little thin cement to let it seep in and held it tightly whilst it set. Now that the body is sorted, we can put the tracks onto the sides, and there are pins so that they can only go in the correct way. I won't be gluing these in place just yet, as I want the opportunity to paint behind them. There are some separate pieces for the interleaved road wheels, which is a nice feature for a good looking model, because it allows for gaps between the wheels, rather than certain wargaming kits where the kind of wheels are just solid blocks all the way through, and some people aren't a fan of that. These outer wheels go in place easily, but they do spin on the pins, and so you should align them with the inner wheels by looking through them. Now, I lost a little section of recording here, but it's only for the seat back and this rear panel thing, and they both go into place really easily as they have sharp corners and nice rectangle recesses for them to fit into. The set also includes some trailers. The first one has a towing bar that glues on underneath, and this can go on backwards fairly easily, and maybe nobody would notice, but I think the middle line on the box is supposed to go slightly behind the axle slots, but the instructions aren't 100% clear. The axles and wheels are just 2 pieces, and again the instructions only show which way round these go by the number of the parts. I'm pretty sure that means the wheels should be leaning towards the back of the cart, and even though they have flat surfaces, the fit of the joints is actually quite loose, and so I held them down for a few minutes just for the cement to set. There is also an optional canvas cover for this on the driver's sprue, and you don't have to glue this down if you want it modular, as it sits in place quite nicely on the top. Next is the Goliath tracked mine, a very simple part of the kit. The main body is just 2 pieces, and you only need to stick the front and back, as the middle bulges are keying for the tracks. and the tracks only go on the correct way because these little bumps in the keying and fit quite well. Lastly, there is this little bumper or handle thing, and this does kind of move around a little bit, so I held it straight while the cement dried. The mine also has a trailer which comes as a frame, and you put these little pins into place, which have what looks like leaf spring shock absorbers, and the pins point inwards. If you want the whole model to be a solid piece, then you put the mine in as you put the pins in place, and the mine will be fixed to the trailer. However, if you want it removable or separate, then fit these springs without the mine in place. Quickly pop the wheels onto the axles and the mine trailer is complete. Now, as I had originally intended to be able to remove the mine, I clipped the pins down so that it can be squeezed into place. But as you'll see later in the video, I ended up gluing this down in the end, but I'll still include this video section for those who want to make the modification. The last parts of the kit are the crew figures, and each of them has the head in two pieces. The neck sticks into the torso, and then you can choose between the field cap or steel helmet to glue on top. These do slide around a little bit, so make sure to align them correctly. I put the driver into place and lined up his arms with the handlebars, but I didn't glue him into the vehicle so that I can paint the pieces separately. I did leave him in place for a little bit so that the arms would be fixed into the correct angle. The passengers have rifles held between the knees, so only the top half of the rifle is modelled. Thankfully, these parts line up very nicely. One has his other hand on the knee and his head goes together like the driver's. The other one has a separation at the waist and one arm meant to lean against the seat of the Kettenkrad. As I'm using poly cement, I have plenty of time to twist the parts around and have them line up with the vehicle correctly, and I let that sit in place for the polystyrene cement to bond, but without fixing him into the seat, again, as I want to paint separately. And that is the whole set complete, but I have one more thing I want to do before moving on to painting next week. I have this whole idea for a fancy base. Whilst the vehicle can pull the infantry car and the mine trailer all at once, I felt the whole thing was quite long and unwieldy for wargaming, and so I removed the cart section. In bolt action, the Goliath mine has 3 crew, so I positioned 3 models along with the mine trailer and compared them to the size of the Kettenkrad with the mine trailer. As you can see, my pen is working in the way that a normal pen does, but I managed to draw out the size of the base that I would want on some baking paper that fit both the crew with the mine and the Kettenkrad with the mine. I then took some sprue goo, the leftover frame parts of a sprue melted in acetone, and I pressed that into the baking paper to match my outline. This ended up being a relatively thick lump, and so it took a week to fully dry, as the acetone needs to pass through the plastic to the surface before it can evaporate. I also 3D printed some base holding rings, and these will ensure that the infantry bases fit and are removable. I glued the mine trailer into place and coated the whole thing with sand to make for gravel. To make the infantry crew for the Goliath tracked mine, I picked up a sprue of German infantry from Warlord Games. However, as that's a different kit, I won't spend that long in this particular video talking about them. That's my excuse, and certainly not because I forgot to record it or anything. I wanted to convert one to be carrying a control box for the mine. Unfortunately, the newer Warlord kits have guns moulded into the hands and the arms, and they're much harder to convert like this. So instead of that, I'll use a rifleman for the time being. And this is what I ended up with, a base big enough for the 3 crew of the mine team and the mine to be pulling the trailer by hand. And this is how I'll use the team when dismounted, but I can easily remove them and place the Kettenkrad in place for when the mine is being towed. Now, it doesn't look quite as nice with the vehicle fitted, but this is just for the tabletop, and I'll display this kit with the crew on the base and the Kettenkrad separate. So I have the model built now and put on a kind of overly complicated modular base for use in bolt action, and of course the Kettenkrad can be used separately as well. If you pop past next week, or just check the description if it's already been a week, you can see me paint up this kit. And there's also a comment section down below if you'd like to join in on the discussion about the kit or how I've built it. But for now, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.